The drive was long, stretching out before me like an endless ribbon of asphalt. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, feeling the tension in my shoulders. It had been 10 years since I last saw Sam. 10 long years filled with memories and missed opportunities. 10 years since we graduated high school in Colorado Springs, a place that now seemed like a distant dream. Now, here I was, driving up to his place in Denver, a city that held so many promises and secrets. The mountains loomed large, casting long shadows in the late afternoon sun, their presence both comforting and intimidating. They seemed to watch me, their peaks disappearing into the clouds, as if guarding the secrets of the past. I shivered, a mix of anticipation and anxiety coursing through me. What had I gotten myself into? Sam had called me out of the blue, his voice carrying a weight I hadn't heard before. His voice sounded different, strained, as if he was carrying a burden too heavy to bear alone. He needed to see me, he said, his words laced with urgency and desperation. He wouldn't tell me more on the phone, leaving me with a sense of unease, just that it was urgent, and that I needed to come as soon as possible. I had to come. I owed him that much, for all the times he had been there for me. We used to be best friends after all, sharing dreams and secrets under the Colorado sky. But something about his tone made my stomach churn, a sense of foreboding settling in. As I got closer to Denver, the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The sky turned a fiery orange, then faded to a deep purple. The air grew colder, a chill that seeped into my bones. I turned on the heater in my old pickup truck, the familiar hum of the engine a small comfort. The engine coughed and sputtered, but it kept going. Just like me, pushing forward despite the odds. I finally reached Sam's address just as the first stars began to appear, twinkling like distant beacons. The house was set back from the road, hidden behind a thick grove of trees, shrouded in mystery. It was a rambling Victorian-era mansion, its grandeur faded but still imposing. A wraparound porch sagged under the weight of years and neglect, whispering tales of a bygone era. Sam was waiting for me on the porch. He looked different, thinner, paler. His eyes held a haunted look I'd never seen before. We embraced awkwardly. He led me inside. The house smelled musty, like old books and dust. Cobwebs hung from the high ceilings. The furniture was draped in white sheets, giving the place the feel of a tomb. "Sorry about the mess," Sam mumbled, leading me into a dimly lit kitchen. "Haven't had much time for cleaning lately." He put on a kettle and rummaged through a cupboard for mugs. I sat down at the heavy wooden table. It was covered in scratches and stains. "So," I said, trying to break the ice, "what's going on? You sounded strange on the phone." Sam hesitated. He poured the boiling water into the mugs, his hand trembling slightly. "It's this house," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's something off about it." We talked for a while longer, catching up on old times, or at least I tried to. But Sam seemed distracted. His eyes kept darting to the shadows in the corners of the room, as if he expected something to jump out at him. The silence between his words was thick with unspoken anxieties. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, making me jump. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. The house was strangely silent, except for the occasional creak and groan of its aging bones. And yet, I felt like I was being watched, observed by unseen eyes. "It's getting late," Sam said abruptly, standing up. "Let me show you to your room." He led me up a creaking staircase, his footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence. The hallway upstairs was dark and narrow, the wallpaper peeling at the seams. It felt cold, much colder than it should have been. Sam opened a door at the end of the hall. "Here you go," he said, his voice hollow. "Get some sleep, we'll talk more in the morning." He didn't wait for me to reply before turning and disappearing down the hallway. I stepped inside the room. It was small and cramped, with a single, narrow window overlooking the front yard. The moonlight streamed in, casting long, eerie shadows on the wall. The room was sparsely furnished with a rickety-looking bed and a dusty dresser. The air hung heavy and still like the inside of a forgotten tomb. I closed the door behind me, the latch clicking shut with a metallic clang that echoed through the silent house. I could have sworn I heard a faint whisper just then, but when I turned around there was nothing there. Dinner was a subdued affair. Sam pushed the food around his plate, his appetite seemingly as absent as his usual cheer. We spoke little, the silence punctuated by the clinking of silverware against china. The shadows outside the windows deepened as the night wore on. "You said something about the house," I ventured, breaking the silence, "that it felt off?" Sam looked up, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and resignation. He took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice low and hesitant. "This house. It has a history," he said, each word seeming to cost him a great effort. "My family. We've lived here for generations," Sam continued, his voice barely a whisper. "There have been stories. Whispers passed down through the years." He paused, his gaze drifting towards the ceiling. I followed his gaze and noticed a door I hadn't seen before. It was set high up on the wall, almost near the ceiling. An attic door. "What kind of stories?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. The air seemed to crackle with unspoken tension. "Stories about things that go bump in the night," Sam said, his voice tight. He stood up abruptly, knocking over his chair in the process. "I'm tired," he said, his voice strained. "I think I'm going to turn in." He didn't look at me as he said it. He just walked out of the room, his footsteps echoing eerily in the silence. I sat there for a long time after Sam left, the weight of his words hanging in the air. The silence of the house pressed in on me, almost suffocating in its intensity. I could have sworn I heard whispers coming from the walls, faint and indistinct, like echoes of the past. Footsteps creaking on the stairs, even though I knew I was alone, added to the eerie atmosphere. I finally decided to turn in for the night, but sleep was impossible, my mind racing with thoughts of what Sam had said. Every creak of the floorboard seemed amplified in the stillness of the night. Every sigh of the wind against my window sent a jolt of fear through me, making my heart race. I lay awake for what felt like hours, my mind racing with questions and fears. What had Sam meant about the house having a history? What secrets did these walls hold? What kind of stories had been whispered through the generations, passed down like a dark legacy? Just as I was about to drift off, I heard a noise, startling me awake. It was a soft thud, like something heavy being dropped, echoing through the silent house. It came from the hallway outside my room, making my skin crawl with unease. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat loud in the quiet night. I got out of bed and crept towards the door, my movement slow and cautious, my hand trembling as I reached for the knob, fear gripping me tightly. As I slowly opened the door, the hinges creaked loudly in the silence. A cold draft hit me, sending a shiver down my spine. The hallway was dark, filled with shadows, the only light coming from the moon shining through the window at the end of the hall, casting eerie patterns on the floor. And then I saw it, a silhouette in the moonlight, standing at the end of the hallway, watching me. Standing at the end of the hallway, bathed in the pale moonlight, was Sam. He was dressed in a long white nightshirt and his face was ashen. He was staring intently at something I couldn't see, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. "Sam?" I whispered, my voice trembling. He didn't react, he just kept staring at whatever it was he saw. I took a step closer, and that's when I noticed it. The attic door. It was slightly ajar, and I could have sworn I saw something move in the darkness beyond. I wanted to call out to Sam again, to ask him what was going on, but something stopped me. A feeling of dread washed over me, so powerful it took my breath away. I turned and fled back to my room, slamming the door shut behind me. I leaned against the door, my heart pounding in my ears. What had I seen? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, my eyes wide open, listening to every creak and groan of the old house. The darkness seemed to press in from all sides, making the room feel smaller and more suffocating. I could have sworn I heard footsteps outside my door, whispers just at the edge of hearing. It was as if the house itself was alive, breathing and watching my every move. As soon as dawn broke, I packed my bags and crept downstairs. My heart pounded with every step, the old wooden stairs creaking under my weight. Sam was still asleep on the couch, his face pale and drawn. He looked so peaceful, yet so exhausted, as if the house had drained the life out of him. I didn't have the heart to wake him. He needed the rest, and I couldn't bear to disturb his fragile peace. I left a note on the coffee table, thanking him for his hospitality, and making up some excuse about needing to get back on the road. I hoped he would understand. Then I slipped out of the house and into the cold light of dawn. The air was crisp and biting, a stark contrast to the oppressive atmosphere inside. As I drove away, I glanced back at the house. It stood there, silent and imposing, as if it were watching me leave. The sun was just starting to rise, casting a golden glow on its gables and turrets. The light made it look almost beautiful, almost serene. It looked almost peaceful in the morning light, but I knew better. I knew the truth that lay beneath its charming facade. I knew the darkness that lurked within its walls, the secrets hidden in its shadows. The house held memories that were better left forgotten, and I knew I would never forget my haunting visit to Sam's house. It was an experience that would stay with me forever, a reminder of the unseen forces that shape our lives.